RC racing can be a bit daunting on those just starting out. There's a lot of things to take into account, and one of them are the classes that you need to run. There are many different classes, and all of them have their own quirks and things to learn. There are also a few other things to learn when it comes to racing, like what's blinky mode or what's a mod class and a stock class. That's what I'm going to go over in this video. Now before we begin, I'd like to point out that the two classes I won't be going over in much detail will be the 4-wheel drive short course truck and 4-wheel drive stadium truck or truckie. Nor will I be covering 8th scale classes. Those classes are usually run on much larger tracks, and I simply don't have the means to acquire them. First, let's go over the premier class of 10th scale off-road racing, the 2-wheel drive buggy. This is probably the most popular and competitive class. If you want to get good quickly, this is the class you go for. 2-wheel drive buggies are also probably the cheapest class to get into as a whole. I mentioned this in my RC racing on a budget video. In terms of their driving characteristics, they tend to be on the more agile but twitchy side, making them a bit more difficult to drive compared to other classes. There are 3 subsections of classes for the 2-wheel drive buggy: 17.5 buggy, Pro Light, and Pro. 17.5 is the standard class where everyone uses ROAR-approved 17.5 motors with an ESC in blinky mode. Now before we continue, it's important to explain what blinky mode actually is. Most ESCs these days will have a blinky mode installed, but what it actually means is no timing or boost from the ESC itself, not from the motor. Pro Light or Mod is like Pro in that you have open range to put in almost whatever motor you want, but you still have to run your ESC in blinky mode. Pro Class or Pro Mod is a completely open class made for the best of the best. Chances are if you're just starting out, you aren't going to be in this class, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Now if you want a class that's easier to drive and will serve as a stepping stone into 2-wheel drive buggy, I'd like to introduce you to 2-wheel drive stadium truck. Stadium trucks are basically slightly slower but easier to drive buggies. Back in the day, they used to be more popular than buggies, but ever since another class I'm going to go over soon came around, they haven't been nearly as prevalent. They're so unpopular that up until recently, my local track didn't even have a stadium truck class, though thankfully they're making a comeback in terms of popularity. In terms of cost, they tend to be a bit more expensive than buggies, mostly due to the tires being a bit more in price. They also tend to be a lot more stable and easy to set up than buggies. If you don't know how or don't really feel like wrenching on your stuff every single time you get off the track, then a stadium truck will be perfect for you. They also, compared to buggies, tend to use stronger motors in their classes. Like buggies though, stadium trucks tend to have either a stock class and a mod class. Unlike 2-wheel drive buggies though, they use 13.5 turn motors instead of 17.5 or 21.5 motors. Because they aren't as popular anymore, however, most tracks tend to usually just have an open class where you can run whatever you like. Next up we have 2-wheel drive short course trucks. Short course trucks, or SETs, originated with the stock Traxxas Slash class, and it was a lot of fun. Eventually other companies began making their own versions of 2-wheel drive short course trucks, and lo and behold, we have the class we know now. Thanks to the closed wheel design of short course trucks, racing with them allows for more contact to be had without cars being caught up and thrown all around. They also cause the car to not really be as planted, and I think more floaty would be the right word compared to other classes of the same scale. With that being said, people don't tend to take short course truck as seriously as the other classes, or at least at my track doesn't. Generally, short course trucks fall into the not so serious let's just race and have fun category. Personally, I wish all racing fell into this category, but hell, what can you do? This of course doesn't stop them from having rules placed upon them. Of course, there is an open mod class for pros and a stock class that uses either a 13.5 turn motor or 17.5 turn motor depending on the track. The one you're looking at now has a 13.5. Now if you're good at driving already, or maybe want more of a challenge, 4-wheel drive buggy is right up your alley. 4-wheel drive buggies are as fast and as difficult as you're going to get in the 10th scale off-road world. Most of the tuning you're going to be doing on a 4-wheel drive buggy is going to be trying to slow them down so you can drive them consistently, at least when it comes to carpet and AstroTurf. I know when A-Main got their 4-wheel drive buggy, they made heavy mods to the front tires to slow the thing down in the corners to avoid traction rolling. Luckily here on AstroTurf you don't have to worry about that, at least mostly. 4-wheel drive buggies are extremely responsive to inputs, and by extension, very responsive to mistakes as well. This makes them not so beginner friendly, but it will help you get better at car control both on the ground and, more importantly, in the air. Because there's a lot more rotating mass and because the amount of torque from the motors, you have a lot more control over the car in the air as a whole. This will allow you to make corrections and do other things in the air much easier, but it also makes it a lot easier to make mistakes in the air as well. Because of all this, 4-wheel drive buggy isn't very beginner friendly, like I said countless times before. But if that's your thing, or you're already really good, I'd say go for it. Like every other class I mentioned in this video, this class has an open mod class and a stock class where everyone runs the same 13.5 turn motor, though this stock class is only really run on much smaller tracks like the one you see here. There are a few classes I didn't mention that may be run at larger tracks like 4-wheel drive 10th scale truggy and 4-wheel drive short course truck. The main reason I haven't been able to get footage of these is because my local track simply doesn't accommodate them. Maybe one day they will. Anyway, those are the 4 main 10th scale classes run at most tracks, and I'd like to thank you for watching. If you liked the video, feel free to like it, comment what you thought, and sub for more. I'll see you later.